another sociology class. Everyone thinks sociology is easy, except the people taking it.
And in three or four areas I'm going through. I'm going to look at functionalism with you. I'm going to look at Marxism, feminism, and also try to bring it a little bit up to date, introducing some ideas of postmodernism.
It's not just the complex language sociologists use, it's that much of it doesn't seem to relate to the real world at all. It's a strange theoretical language of ologies and ities and isms. So why is there all this theory in sociology? What's it all for? And why are there different theories? Can they really help us understand our experiences? And the question we all want an answer to, can it all be made a little clearer? It's often thought that sociology is about social problems, things that people feel are going wrong with society. Bad housing, unemployment, drug abuse. Sociologists aren't interested in these kinds of problems, but sociology is about rather more than this. It involves trying to understand individual actions in terms of the everyday working of wider society.
Well, sociology is the key discipline in the social sciences. It is the subject which concerns our experience as individuals, what we make of our lives, what we understand as possibilities for our future, but it does so by linking our experience as individuals to the wider collective fate of the societies in which we live and ultimately to humanity as a whole.
Sociologists don't begin by asking what's wrong with societies. They start by asking how they hold together, how they change, and how our lives as individuals are shaped by the societies in which we live. These kinds of questions are called sociological problems. Sociological theories are the ideas that sociologists develop to help them try to explain social life. They begin as speculations, guesses about the relationship between different parts of a society and what may lie beneath the surface of the everyday world. General theories provide us with an image of how societies work. All science involves trying to explore beneath the surface of the world that we see. And when scientists want to visualize what something might look like, they construct theoretical models. Well, much the same is true of sociologists.
Well, I think sociological theories are about models of society. The point about sociological theories is that they should be general and abstract. That means that they're a model of how society works, so that once you have that model, you can then apply it to specific contexts. So once you've understood how a Marxist model of society works, you can then apply that to education or to health or to the family or to any particular instance which you're interested in.
The problem for the sociology student is that there's not one theory in sociology, but rather a number of competing theoretical approaches. Answering sociology exam questions will often involve comparing different theories and relating them to specific topics.
Often questions look like they are pure theory ones, but they're really not. What the examiner is looking for is a student who can take a question like that and then bring in all sorts of other areas that they've looked at. So a question that is, for example, compare and contrast social action with social structure. They're really looking for you to say, right, what can you use from family sociology that you've done? What can you use from religion that you have done? That's what the examiner is looking for.
There are different theoretical approaches or perspectives in sociology because sociologists have got different ideas about what societies are and how they influence people. The relationship between the individual and society is a key issue for sociological theory. For sociologists, it's a two-way street. As individuals, we clearly create societies, but we're also created by them. That is, the societies we're born into influence how we act and think about the world. So how have sociologists tried to theorise this relationship? One approach is to look at societies as social structures. Structure is a word you often come across in textbooks, but what exactly do sociologists mean by social structure?
The issue of social structure is an easy concept to deal with. Social structure refers to the fact that we live in already formed societies. Each of us are born as individuals in a society which precedes our existence. I didn't invent, for example, the legal system of the United Kingdom. That existed well before I got here and presumably will still exist long after I've departed the scene and other people sitting here have departed the scene. It refers to enduring systems of organisation which are larger than the individual and which shape the individual's life. Structure focuses very much on what one might call macro institutions. That is to say, it focuses on society as a collective entity, society as a whole, and looks at institutions and processes independently of the agents who make up those institutions and processes.
Many of the founders of sociology adopted a structural approach, but are their ideas still relevant to contemporary sociology? What do the examiners think?
It can seem irrelevant to look back at what people were saying 100 years or so ago, but the whole point is that somebody then came along, looked at what the early writers were saying, and said, don't agree with that, I think I could produce something else. And they go along and do that. You won't understand the new developments unless you have seen the original ideas. And many of the original ideas have got a great contribution still to make.
Emile Durkheim was the first professor of sociology. His work did more than anyone else's to establish sociology as an independent academic subject. So if you don't like sociology, and you're sorry now you took it, at least you know who to blame.
Well, for Durkheim, sociology was about a fundamental problem of social order. Durkheim was interested in trying to explain really how social order was possible, and particularly how social order in the modern world was possible. His answer to this was that societies rely on what he calls the collective conscience, that is, the overall set of values, sentiments, moral elements of a society which individuals internalise, but which are fundamentally social in their nature. And so individuals become socialised into particular values, particular norms, and these provide the moral fabric of society.
The key to Durkheim's sociology is that he had a distinct image of society, society being like a body or an organism. And therefore to him, just as all the organs in the body are indispensable and interdependent, so were the different parts of society indispensable to the functioning of the whole and interdependent with one another.
So Durkheim used an organic model of society where the different parts function to maintain the whole. But just as people are more than a collection of organs, so for Durkheim, societies were more than the sum of their parts. What links them and what binds people to each other is an invisible web of common values and sentiments. For Durkheim, the core of a society was its values. In 20th century sociology, this aspect of Durkheim's theory was developed most fully by Talcott Parsons in a perspective known as structural functionalism.
Well, Parsons' central idea is that society constitutes a system. There's nothing random about it. It has parts, those parts are institutions like education, the church, the judiciary, the state. But these are not randomly connected. The way they are connected isn't just a matter of how they historically developed. They are patterned the way they are patterned because they respond to the functional requirements of the whole.
If you think of the central heating system, you have lots of different components. You have radiators, you have a boiler, you have a thermostat, and on their own, these things understand their function, how they contribute to the working of the overall system, you need to see the system working in its entirety. And really this is how Parsons saw society, as a system of interconnected parts.
In spite of the long and impressive sounding words they often use, sociological theories are only of use if they help us to make sense of people's experiences. So do these Durkheimian ideas help make sense of students' and teachers' experiences of education? Let's go and find out. So what do students get from school, apart from the lessons?
It's where you learn to socialise, it's where you can meet friends, and here anybody can come here. So it's not just sort of upper class or middle class people, everybody's here together. It's how you learn to sort of communicate.
It's easy to socialise with people because you've a lot of people of your own age, people with teachers who are different age, so it trains you to get on with people in life.
Education has two kinds of social significance for Durkheim. The first one is its socialisation job. It is the place in which people will learn the common values which will be shared throughout society. It's what makes them a citizen.
Got a big student council, we learn about democracy in that way. We have lots of channels of how we can all communicate with each other, and everybody's supposed to have a say in what goes on. So I guess that's pretty helpful in seeing how a lot of society is supposed to be run as well.
The purpose of education in society is one which is long-term really, and is able to provide a student to train them, to give them skills, but most importantly to give them a consensual view of society so they know how to fit in. They're part of the scheme of things.
Its second importance in Durkheim is giving people a fair start. Because when you have a fair start, can the jobs that they get, the money that they earn, reflect their natural differences in ability, which he regarded as fair, rather than artificial differences in ability, like where were you born, how well off were your parents, etc., etc. So education integrates both by spreading fairness and through spreading shared values.
I do believe that the education system is fair. It gives everyone an equal opportunity to achieve the same way as everyone else. Everyone starts at the same standard, everyone finishes at the same standard. It's the same level all the way through. Everyone's taught the same way, and everyone's the same age. So obviously it is a fair system.
I think it's more important in today's society because the family begins to break down and we lack integration in society. And what schools do is provide the major role and function in society to integrate society so everybody has a value system which they share. And the values that I'm thinking about are those values which are important both in school and work: punctuality, knowing your position in the hierarchy, obeying the rules. You know, if students are going to make their way in the world, which is increasingly difficult, we have to give them some good grounding in these values.
Parsons' views of education are very close to those of Durkheim. Education has a primary function, which is socialization. It's to convey the central values of society to all of its members. Parsons has often been criticised for this. There's a wonderful cartoon which shows a child sitting there in a school class with a funnel in its head, and somebody's taking a bottle and they're pouring in knowledge and values. And that has led a lot of people to criticise Parsons for what they call the over-socialised view of man and women.
Parsons believed that there was a natural hierarchy, that people should be seated into the positions which they naturally fit. And therefore the education system would function to sort these people into this hierarchy, and which is called a meritocracy.
Bridge back there.
Davison Moore took these ideas much further, but also said people should be rewarded for the long term, the time they paid in education. But to get to that position, they had to be better than their others and their peers. And that's what education systems could do, they simply thought.
The best paid jobs don't go to the people who've left school at 16, who haven't learned how to integrate into society, who haven't learned the sort of hierarchical way of society. So you need to get an education to understand the ways of society and how to get on. You need the skills.
So for Durkheim and Parsons, education isn't just about the curriculum. It's also about transmitting social value and allocating people into positions which are appropriate to their skills. But does everyone agree with this?
When you consider who left at GCSE level, a lot of those are working class. And I think that's again wrong. It's not fair because you are working class, then teachers probably don't treat you the same. Rather than if you're well spoken, then they're more likely to give you more time in their lessons.
You come in certain class and the school just enforces it, doesn't it? It doesn't help you change that really. I mean, yeah, if you're really bright, sometimes they help you out by helping you be more academic, and that can maybe move you up, but usually they just enforce the word, like, if you're working class, you stay that.
Well, school's a waste of time, really, isn't it? I mean, I haven't really learned anything from school that's going to help me in the rest of my life. I'm just going to leave school and get a job, get some money, because that's what I need to do, isn't it?
I used to believe that education could correct some of the inequalities in society, but I now think that it doesn't. It just simply reinforces the middle class children win and the working class children lose, and we're part of the system that does that.
So some students and teachers have a much more critical view of education, one based much more on conflict and inequality. So are there sociological theories which can help us make sense of their experiences?
Sociological theories aren't developed in a vacuum. To some extent, they mirror the societies from which they emerge. Structural functionalism was very much a product of a post-war, confident and affluent America.
Society seems so prosperous, successful, and even fair, because in this version of the American dream, anyone with talent prepared to work hard could make it. But in this comfortable world of the 1960s, conflict is just around the corner.
For some, society was still the unequal struggle for scarce resources and limited opportunities. Durkheimian and structural functionalist theories have difficulty explaining conflict on this scale, and some sociologists once more look back to classical theories to help explain it.